Hey there. For today's episode, I want to share my survival guide for crappy days. One of the first things I learned when I started adulting properly was that everybody needs a toolbox for navigating life's many unforeseeable pitfalls. We go through so much in our lives that it can feel like you have to carry the world on your shoulders every day. And then you see the people around you looking like they're doing just fine, so you believe you're the only one on the struggle bus. But everyone experiences a day or two where they feel like they should have stayed in bed. The only major difference is that some people have developed a survival guide that helps them to navigate their shitty days with more awareness and compassion. And before I get too wrapped up into it, I have to acknowledge that a day is mostly just a day. We are conditioned to label days as good or bad based on our experiences and our expectations, which means that the difference between a good day and a bad day is purely a difference in perspective. If something good happens in the middle of a bad day, does that make the bad day good? When I think about some of the best days in my life, some didn't start out too well. Like the first time I met my partner, I had practically forced myself out of bed to go meet with my friends. I was in such a shitty headspace that it would have been better to just stay in bed and wallow. But later that day, I was so happy and feeling much better that by the time we were meeting, I had completely forgotten about how hard it had been to leave the house in the morning. No matter how well you plan your life, there will always be a day or two that threaten to take you out. And more often than not, these days just sneak up on you when you least expect it. Depending on what your bad days look like, you can either work backwards to prevent them, or be proactive and develop a survival guide that will make them bearable. I will talk about both options in detail in this episode because if we allow ourselves to get swallowed whole by these crappy days, we risk getting into a cognitive bias where we feel like we have an overall crappy life. So, how do we flip the script on a shitty day? Bad days come in all forms. Maybe your alarm didn't go off, making you late for an important meeting. Or perhaps you had a foot in mouth moment that left you wanting to crawl into a hole. Whatever your trigger, we've all been there, trapped in that downward spiral of negativity. Sometimes it starts with something as simple as not finding the pants you had planned to wear that day. And before you know it, a few cab guys have cancelled on you and you're running late. Your boss or client is mad, and your partner is upset because you yelled at them while in that frantic state. It makes sense when such days leave you feeling like you want to disappear. But when you think about it objectively, it is just one bad day out of the many good ones that go unnoticed. Even more objectively, it is just one unfortunate incident that caused your day to unravel, and you can still salvage the rest of the day if you want to. Unfortunately, thinking objectively is not easy when you're having a shit day. Your brain is on an emotional override and you are feeling your feelings rather intensely at this point. So what can you do to avoid the negativity trap that will keep you looped up in a flood of negative feelings? The answer heavily depends on the type of bad day that you're having. I will talk about the kind of bad days that are triggered by an event and the ones where you just wake up feeling shitty. If something bad has happened, there are a few things that I can recommend you add into your crisis plan. Having a crisis plan will be like having a trusted friend guiding you through a day where you cannot trust your brain to do the right thing for you. Since you are already struggling, not having to make decisions will make your day easier. I have my crisis plan in my notes app, so I just refer to it to guide me when I am on the struggle bus. Here are the steps I have in my plan, and you can add or subtract to it to suit your needs. Step 1 is name your demon. What is it that has happened? Reflect on the thing that is causing you misery and label it. If you are having a hard day because you woke up late, then your demon is time. It is easier to deal with a problem when you know what it is. If you can, also reflect on why this issue is a problem for you. For example, if you are late for an interview, why were you late? What time did you wake up? How much time did you need to get to the interview? What specifically delayed you or made you wake up late? Figuring out the details of the problem will create a clear pathway to the solution without dwelling too much on the blame section. Step 2 is reframe the problem. The bad thing that happened does not define you or your life. If the problem was that you were late, it is plausible that you have a time management issue. That does not mean that you will always be late or that you are a bad person who does not respect other people's time. I high-key cringe when people label themselves with their vices. Like when watching The Real Housewives of Nairobi, I found it very annoying when Vera owned the idea that she is always going to be late like it's her identity. I think anyone can get better at managing the time by simply being conscious of how much time it takes you to do stuff. Like if you have a meeting at 9 and you need 1 hour to get to the venue, you know you should be ready by 8. And if you know it takes you 30 minutes to get ready, you make sure you are up before 7:30. Most of the people that struggle with time simply underestimate how much time they need to get things done. So they end up needing more time and inconveniencing others in the process. Anyway, time management is a whole other conversation. So to sum up this idea, see the problem for what it is, instead of making it into a mountain that it is not. Also, generally avoid tying your problems to your identity. You are so much more than that one thing, and it is very difficult to escape your identity. Step 3 is acknowledge the shitstorm. When you are having a crappy day, do not fall into the trap of denial. Do not force yourself to be upbeat knowing that you are operating at a deficit. If you need a moment to reset your mood, take it. If you need to indulge in your sugar cravings, that's fine too. I think the first step to dealing with a problem is acknowledging the associated emotional experience. A crappy day will definitely have you feeling like shit. If you acknowledge that you are struggling, you might be able to prevent yourself from snapping at someone, because when the raging feelings come up, you know why they are there. Here, I'd like to note that even when you're having a bad day, being mean to someone will have consequences. So it is better to rein it in and remind yourself that that person is not responsible for what you are feeling. Step number 4 is practice some gratitude. This may sound redundant and more on the side of toxic positivity, but it is the only way to get out of the overgeneralization bias. When something bad happens, your brain naturally dwells on it because it is a survival instinct to hyperfixate on the things that threaten us. To counter this instinct, think about 3 things that you are grateful about. It could be as simple as a nice meal you made for yourself, or a new job, a thriving relationship, or even a happy family. You need to look at your life objectively and see the things that make you happy. And this is not meant to take you away from the facts of the day, just to remind your brain that you are not in a hopeless state. Step number 5 is don't quit just yet. The one thing that most of us do is quitting at the height of the struggle, but that's not always a good idea. If you fuck up and things get heated, that is not the best time to quit. Your brain is flooded with emotions, and any decisions that you make are likely at a deficit. Take a moment. If you can, take the day, and then come back to the issue at hand. If you are still certain that quitting is the answer, then by all means. And this applies not just to jobs and projects, but also to relationships. The best time to walk away is not when you are emotionally charged. So do not, in the middle of a bad day, decide to pull the plug on anything. You will most likely regret it when your brain's rationality is back online. Step number 6 is call a friend. This sounds very simple, but it is not that obvious for most people. Calling someone that cares about you gives you a chance to calm down and feel better. Even when there is nothing to say, just calling someone and hearing about their day will make a difference to your emotional state. For those who love to vent, calling someone who has the time to listen without judgment or without the need to offer a solution will help you to offload and feel a bit lighter. Calling a friend also provides a brief distraction that will allow your mood to reset and maybe make you calmer as you go back to your stressors. The challenge here, however, is that you have to have meaningful friendships that you can rely on. Those always require some work and a lot of showing up for your people. Step number 7 is move your body. Exercise might seem too hard, but it really isn't. Skipping rope for 10 minutes will do wonders for your brain. A brief 10-minute walk outside is also just as effective. When your emotional state is not at its best, it is easy for you to want to lie down, get on social media, and never get up again. The problem, however, is that you are more likely to benefit from moving your body than scrolling on your phone. So even though it is the last thing you want to do, get up and get moving. The endorphins will reset your day more effectively than the dopamine that you get from your phone or your TV. If your bad day is being caused by a low mood, on the other hand, there are ways to deal with this too. First, I'd like to note that mood fluctuations are normal. The only problem is that it is up to you to get yourself out of the low mood loop, because if you don't, you can easily spiral into depression. Julia Smith wrote that a low mood is a reflection of an unmet need. So I think that whenever you find yourself having a low mood, the best thing to do is to reflect on what might have caused it. Think about what was happening just before you felt like that, and what kinds of feelings you are experiencing. All these things will provide some guidance into figuring out why you are having a low mood and maybe help to prevent future recurrences of the same. Meanwhile, here are 4 things you can do to conquer that low mood. Step number 1 is make the decision. Low mood days are often characterized by inaction. You want to stay in bed all day or scroll on your phone for hours and hours. But in order to change how you're experiencing that day, you have to get moving. Get out of bed, take a shower, do a quick workout, journal, eat a nice meal, go for a walk. Basically, do anything that will get you off your ass, even if just briefly. Step 2 is enable consistency with your existing routine. Low mood days are a trap for habit formation because this is when you are most likely to not follow through with the things that you committed to doing. And yet, these are the days that matter the most. If you are having a low mood and you do nothing about it, you will stay in that mood for a while. And the more you stay there, the further you fall off from your healthy habits. To enable consistency, you have to allow yourself to do the bare minimum on a low mood day. So if you always take a 45-minute walk at the end of the workday, allow yourself to do 10 minutes when you have a low mood. If you write 3 pages in your journal every day, be okay with only writing a few sentences. Setting manageable goals for a low mood day will keep you moving and prevent you from getting stuck in this emotional state. The third solution is to practice self-compassion. While it is not advisable to not do anything when you're struggling, it is also bad for you if you push yourself too hard. It is okay if you can't write 5,000 words on a hard day. You don't have to have a perfect streak when you're struggling. Be kind to yourself on these days because that is when you need it the most. Kindness will allow you room to recover without feeling like you only matter when you're getting things done. The trap here, however, is that you need to limit your self-compassion or you'll end up lacking the discipline to get anything done. Be reasonable with what compassion is for you and how committed you are to your goals. Solution number 4 is to reroute as needed. A big challenge that we have when dealing with a low mood is that we do not decide how we want to feel, and that leaves us helpless and stuck in the low mood. If I'm having a shitty day and I decide that I want to feel more loved, it is easy for me to reach out to my partner or my friends because they will make me feel more loved. If you want to feel productive, get your hands on a project that you can finish. Essentially, in order to flip the script on a low mood, you have to replace it with a different mood by committing to the necessary action. And this is not as complicated. Some people will get a bottle of whiskey when they are feeling sad because they get giddy when they're high. The science here makes sense, except for the fact that the sadness will return in full swing once the high subsides. A better approach is to seek joy in community, or to process the sadness in a way that allows you to let it go. An additional tip on the low mood is that you need to know there is a connection between your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your behavior. So the best way to control your actions and behavior is by learning how your thoughts and feelings influence them. Your thoughts and your feelings influence each other in some sort of loop, where your thoughts can influence your feelings and your feelings can influence your thoughts. And while you may not have a direct control over your feelings, you can certainly decide on which thoughts you give power to. Some thoughts are meant to be observed and allowed to pass. Others are meant to be reacted to. Knowing the difference is where the wisdom lies. There are other instances where you feel like you are having a shit day because you are overwhelmed by something that you have to do. In such instances, my advice is that you should break down your task into smaller tasks. For example, if you are overwhelmed by the idea of cleaning your house and it is taking over your entire day and paralyzing you, you can start by writing down all the areas that you need to clean. Like for me, cleaning the bathroom includes a list of about 7 small tasks. Listing them down makes me see how quick and easy they are, making it more likely that I will get up and get it done. So when I think about cleaning the bathroom, it is not one huge task that leaves me overwhelmed. Rather, it is a long list of tiny tasks that I can enjoy checking off my to-do list. Breaking down your large tasks into smaller tasks also allows you to schedule the work in between fun things. Like sometimes I load the dishes while on a bathroom break as I watch a show, or I'll change the sheets while getting dressed to go outside. When the tasks are tiny, they can no longer be overwhelming. Another tip for dealing with a crappy day is to treat yourself. This applies for both low mood days and hard days. Treating yourself can look like a tub of ice cream, going for a run, a nice dinner, a playlist, a bubble bath, a sensible booty call, a new book, or a home-cooked meal. Essentially, you have to do something nice for yourself that is nice by your standards because we all appreciate different things. The goal for treating yourself is not as much about what you do, but about the affirmation that you deserve nice things even when you are struggling. It also helps to relieve stress after a very long day. I also suggest a reflection on what triggers your crappy days. Sometimes you are the reason you are having bad days because you keep making bad choices. For example, if I know that I cannot function on less than 6 hours of sleep, and I choose to stay up late when I have stuff to do the following day, I am fully responsible for how bad my day will feel. So, understanding the conditions that give you a crappy day is a great way to ensure that you minimize the probability of having that crappy day. If you find that being late makes your day shitty, the solution is as simple as you learning how not to be late. If you find that the problem is that you are hungry, then create time to eat in the course of your day. I think taking the time to understand what goes on in your life is the best way to get off that autopilot mode and have some control over how your days turn out. And even when you can't completely avoid a crappy day, knowing that you are giving yourself the best chance at having a good day will keep you in a positive loop because you won't be busy blaming yourself for things that are outside of your circle of control. Now, this episode will not be complete if I don't mention that having many consecutive low mood days is a major sign that you might actually be depressed. Of course, you will need to seek professional help and get a proper diagnosis, but even though happiness is a subjective construct, consecutive low mood days leave your brain defenseless. So if you realize that you are unable to push your way out of a prolonged low mood streak, please ask for help. And that's all I have for today. May the new week bless us all.